Hey everybody, this is Ramon Mejia from the LitRPG Podcast. I want to give you a quick heads up about this particular episode of the podcast. Had a great conversation with Dakota Krout, author of the Divine Dungeon series. Now, unfortunately, there were some technical errors that were beyond my particular control. We used Google Hangouts for this episode, and for whatever reason, my mic decided to kind of get all crackly for the first 20 minutes or so of it's a very long interview conversation with the guy who's very nice. My online friend, at least. But just heads up, if you listen to it and you can't stand the crackling noise on my voice, Dakota's mic is perfectly fine. His sound is cool. But if you can't stand it, just skip ahead about the 20-minute mark, and everything else from there on in is smooth audio sailing. So go enjoy that interview. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG Podcast. I'm Ramon Mejia. I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course, author interviews today. And today I have the great pleasure of talking with my friend, my amigo, my compadre, Mr. Dakota Krout, author of the The Divine Dungeon Book 1. And he's here talking about Book 2, the Dungeon Madness. And we're going to have a nice little LitRPG chat. Welcome, Dakota.
Hey, thanks, Ramon. Thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me as well. We've already been talking like for a half an hour. I forgot to press the record button. So I'm sorry, folks, you missed out on all those great conversational aspects of ranting and raving about reviewers and all the things we're doing with all our tons of author money and the $2 that we made or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get to go get like a taco from Taco Bell or something,
Taco Tuesday.
There you go. Yep. Maybe they'll take a book and trade or something,
There's a bar in LA that does that. They'll give free drinks in exchange for residual checks, whether they're like $1 or like $100. If you give them your residual check from like a television show you're on, they'll just give you a free drink. So like anyone who gets those pennies, they get free drinks.
That's cool. Sure. So let's see. How are things in California? Bright and sunny?
Very bright, very sunny. It just hit like 85 degrees yesterday. It was the first day in like a while that the rain had stopped, and the sun came out with a vengeance.
Wow, we got almost all the way up to +1. It was a really good day. Only a couple inches of snow left here, so we're getting there.
Our weather. I know our weather conditions differ. I'm kind of curious to think about like the impact that good and bad weather has on someone's writing. Because I figure like if you're just box sitting in your house all day, whether it's rain or sleet or snow, maybe you get more writing done. Is that the case for you?
Usually if it's a dark, dreary day, it's a dark, dreary day in the dungeon, So, if I'm having a really bad day, I kill off a main character or two. We'll see.
If it's a bad day for you, characters die. People get mass eaten by that dungeon. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely write based on my mood at the time. So,
No, I absolutely agree. Sometimes I have to like play certain music or like play movies in the background.
Oh, sure.
Get me in the mood to write certain scenes, like especially action scenes, like where there's a lot of fighting. I'll have to watch like some action movie, like whether it's The Matrix or like Gladiator or whatever. And sometimes it's very much just like, I'm translating what I'm seeing into like words to describe certain action movements, because I personally, writing's hard for me, so I had never had to think about like actually describing fight movements.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely. So let's see. I suppose we should get to the talk here, because that's what people are here for, right? Yeah.
We will begin with a big congratulations to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Number 2 novel, Dungeon Madness, came out not too long ago. As a matter of fact, the last time we talked, we were talking about my successful novel, and this time we're talking about your successful novel. Your novel, number 2 novel, hit number 47 on the Amazon paid store, which is absolutely amazing. So congratulations on that. In addition to that, you also hit number 1 in 3 separate categories.
6.
Single story, coming of age, books coming of age, and epic fantasy as well. So those are very big categories, which a lot of competition, and you hit number 1 for a good period of time. So congrats, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually hit 6 different categories. Number 1 for a couple weeks there. So I also
how do you check those 6 there? Because I only ever see like 3.
Oh yeah, so there's on Amazon you can see like all categories that you fall under. So I also had number 1 in genetic engineering, coming of age, swords and sorcery, action adventure movie, like, and then like the movie video game adaptation.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. That was really cool because I opened it up and it's like 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. I was like, yes, this is amazing. You guys are all amazing. Thank you.
So here goes up the bill. Thank you from Dakota Krout to his fans for picking up the book and making him a #1 best-selling author.
Yes, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Okay, now for anyone who hasn't read your book, which is apparently not very many people according to those ratings, what would be your description or your elevator pitch for the Divine Dungeon series and specifically Dungeon Madness?
Oh, okay. So for the whole series, I guess. Well, let's see. So the best way to describe the whole series is to say that kind of a play on the cover, of course, is that everything is shades of gray. You know, we have all these books where you start the book, you start the quest, and you have a blatant bad guy, a blatant good guy, and everything is black and white. And you say, hey, I'm going to do this. Everyone is going to join me, all this other fun stuff. My book is not like that. So my books are, it shows the actual quandaries, the actual difficulties that people have as they gain more recognition or status or fighting prowess or all these other things, where if you are going to fight, you're going to have to get some training or you're going to get your butt handed to, or in this case, eaten. In a literal sense, the whole body, not, anyway, so for Dungeon Madness, that one I really liked. This one was definitely a lot more action packed than the first one. So the first one was a lot of a discussion on world building. It was a lot of discussion on setting up the magic systems, all that other fun stuff. This one was the beginning of using all of that stuff. So the beginning of Cal, getting his monsters out there and, fighting correctly, of Danny joining in fights and becoming a more prominent role in the book. Then, with the second main character, Dale and his group, it was they started to become actually good fighters. They're going to start becoming slowly better at what they do, like in Dale's case, it's city administration, all that stuff. One of the complaints I got was that they wanted to see a lot more of the building up of the town, and I guess a lot of people don't know how involved that process actually is. So typically, if you have the mayor of a town, right, like any town anywhere, and you say, hey, we're going to be building a house. He doesn't go over and, measure the house for you and put down the wood and all that stuff. He's like, hey, that's cool. Make sure you have zoning rights for that. Talk to this guy over here because, while I'm, top position of the town, that's not my job to go and do every little thing for you. Right. And some people, especially with Alron, his books are great because he's like, hey, I take a very active role in my town. I build all this stuff up. I do all this, and he does it in a way that's fun and people actually want to read. And with me, it'd be more like, all right, so we got a 8x10 room, and we're gonna need 30 cubic feet of wood. So we're gonna have to go and plane this down with. And it's like, for me, if I were to start doing that, I would slowly build up actual woodworking manuals and stuff, and no one wants that. Not in this style of book.
Well, yeah, very much a difference between a realism point of view of city management, like an actual city, and,
right.
And what Alaron does is more of a real-time strategy city.
Right.
Building. It's like,
right,
you
exactly.
Drop 3 walls, or you assign laborers the way
right.
you would in Warcraft to craft things and things like that. And yours on the whole is a lot more realistic in that there are unforeseen consequences for a lot of decisions, whether they're grabbing power or trying to grow in strength, or in Cal's case, him experimenting with special mushrooms.
Nice. Wow. Okay. Not what I hadn't really thought about that, but that does make sense. Yeah. Okay. Yep. And that brings up a good point on in the second book. One of the main big bad guys is the mushrooms. So if you haven't read the book, you'll have to read it to understand. If you have read the book, you'll get a chuckle out of that probably. So definitely read the books. Just my point of view.
Yeah,
might be a little biased.
Definitely not. No. To give readers a quick overview of the Divine Dungeon series, if you don't look at a Dungeon Master stories real quick, in this particular case, Cal was formerly a human. He was killed by a necromancer. His soul was trapped in a soul gem, and eventually became a self-aware entity in this gem. And as he was in a case system, essentially started to cultivate, which is kind of a different way of explaining experience points and grabbing energy from different entities in this particular universe, and also like a magic system in a very similar way. But he uses that to create a dungeon. So those things that in other adventures where they go dive into and kill monsters and get treasure, well, this is the other point of view, the dungeon's point of view.
Yes.
And the story, like if it was self-aware, how would it create traps? How would it kind of feed itself on the life energy force from the adventurers, and what would its goals be? And so that's kind of the big theme of these kind of stories. And in yours in particular is very unique in the fact that it doesn't use like experience points levels necessarily. It uses something similar, but it's going to be cultivation in this particular instance.
Right.
And he also, of course, has a very nice guide, Danny, who's his companion and helps educate him on how to be a good dungeon. And of course, with any kind of resource, in this case, a city happens to spring up around it when the alternate main character Dale discovers the dungeon, and people flock to it to get resources. And so there are a bunch of like interesting themes here between balancing killing adventurers to getting them to come in, and also then there's the city building aspect of it. It's a really cool story, folks. I definitely recommend that you go check it out, books 1 and 2. But that's kind of a brief summary of it for anybody who's interested in it.
Perfect. Yeah, you really did your homework on that. All right. Yeah, thanks for reading it, Ramon. Jeez, that's great. So another thing with the dungeon is that it explains a little bit more, like it kind of pushes out the idea that all dungeons everywhere are sentient, and so it gives little explanations for why in World of Warcraft or something you can walk along, step on a spider, and get a boot. It just fun stuff. I really like puns. I really like dry humor, and I really like subtlety. So while there is a lot of stuff in there that's
as well.
Yes.
How do I notice that? Every title of the book has a double meaning, whether it's Dungeon Born in the first case, where it's Dungeon Born is the dungeon being born, and then at the very end you have your double twist, and it's another character is reborn within the dungeon. And Dungeon Madness is very much the same way. There's the obvious meaning with the main storyline of magic mushrooms gone wild, where like people around the world have this magic mushroom zombie effect, and that's called Dungeon Madness. But at the very end, there's another twist on that theme, which we won't spoil for anybody. There's always a double meaning there.
Right, and I try to make it very less blatant. I do put in a lot of blatant humor, of course, because I like humor. But a couple of people have messaged me on Facebook and other places, and they'll be like, "Hey, I just found this. Does this mean this?" I'm like, "Yeah, hey, congrats, man. I didn't think anyone would see that."
Points. You get the bonus. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, "Oh, man, that's hilarious," or just little subtle Easter eggs. Some, not for everyone, but in my case, I think it works out pretty well.
That's kind of always fun to have in your writing, is that there's these inside jokes, like people within those particular fandoms be like, "Oh, I get that. That's awesome," and you'll make them laugh. But it doesn't it's not so like in your face that everybody else is like, "I don't get it." Right. They're not. It doesn't ruin the story because they don't get that particular joke. It's just it's a subtle little thing for if you get it, great. You don't. It doesn't change the story for you.
Sure. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I know we had some questions from the Facebook group. Are we gonna do those right away, or are we gonna hang on to that for a little while?
No, I have writer questions for you, man.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Questions for myself. One. Okay. I had a question actually about editing, because you've done a couple books now. I'm not sure how you do the editing process. Do you have a paid editor, beta readers? Do you have prayers and sacrifices to the writing gods? What's your editing process?
Well, while I do send up the prayers to Lord Google, usually it's not so much for editing purposes. No, I don't have paid editors or anything like that. So I have my lovely wife, myself, of course, a good friend of mine, Dylan S. I'm not going to say his full name just in case he doesn't want it out there. Dylan S. He's in the acknowledgments of my books. And my friend Hans, who is also a main character. So I try and pull people from those different backgrounds. So like my friend Hans is working on his master's currently in mathematics. My friend Dylan is a computer scientist like I am, but he's also in honors English courses and stuff like that, where a big thing, a big chunk of what they do is critiquing and plot hole finding, stuff like that. He actually wants to be an editor, though, so he's kind of doing pro bono stuff right now for me, so he can be like, hey, look at this book I edited. People like it, hire me. And that's working out well for him right now.
Well, if you want to pass along his information to me, I'm looking for someone to edit this next book. At least, critique it and point out some things professionally.
Sure.
I use beta readers myself, but they're not professional writers, or they don't have the background in English. Neither do I, though.
Sure. And finally, there's my wife, and my wife is a molecular biologist. So she not only does stuff like looking for misspelled words or misspelled context, but she's the person that will read the book and say, what in the world does this mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? That's charisma or something like that. Like this is. Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I don't understand what that means, because this isn't her genre. She doesn't read this kind of thing normally. And I'm like, oh, perfect. I didn't even think about that. Like, if I have someone reading that's not from in the genre, I haven't explained that at all. Yep. So then I go back and I can add explanations and stuff. So it works out really well to have people from backgrounds that are not in our genre, so that they can be like, hey, a typical person reading this would be very confused, and I can be like, oh, well, I can explain that. And then it went really well for the first book. Like I think I did pretty solid explanation in there for people that were new to the genre. They got introduced to terms at a rate that was not an information dump, but it was enough to let them understand the series. I haven't used any beta readers. Not because I don't trust people, just because I don't know them. If anyone lives up in North Dakota, you can swing by. We'll chat for a while if you want to be a beta reader, and we can make something happen. But I just I don't want to be like, hey, I don't know you. I don't want to say anything negative. Like I'm like, hey, I really appreciate the offer and stuff. And a lot of people definitely have offered to beta read for me. But I don't. You never know who's going to spoil a surprise ending or something like that, or who's going to be like, oh, right in the middle of the book, you put the big twist. I can't believe it. And it's like, hey, man, you need to like chill or something, So I would love to have beta readers, but I only use people I know, personally. Yeah.
No, hey, your books are doing well, so whatever you do, it works for you. But I hear exactly what you're saying as far as the wife being a nice sounding board. For making sure ideas and concepts that we're just taking for granted as gamers or as LitRPG readers make sense to people outside of our little bubble. Because I did the same thing. She does my alpha reading. She does my first draft of it, and whenever I'm done, writing a page or a chapter or whatever. And very much in the very first book, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, she's like, what's this strength, dexterity stuff? Like, does this affect this thing, or like, what does it do? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You don't know what that does. Like, you don't realize that strength affects, melee damage, but dexterity affects range damage, and intelligence for magic systems and skill trees and things like that, or whatever kind of, selective nomenclature we use within our genre. And it's like very much you have to be. It's nice to have that outside point of view to point out, oh, this makes no sense to me, because I don't read these stories. Can you explain this? And it's like, oh yeah, just add a little extra there. So I get that.
Exactly. Sure. So next question.
Next question. Okay. Okay. Are you going to take a break before you start writing book 3?
No. Well, no, not really. I took a break a couple of weeks, but something that has brought up there, people are like, hey man, aren't you gonna get burnt out? Aren't you, like, we don't want you to burn out and stop writing. And the thing there is that this is my hobby. If this was my full-time job, yeah, I'd probably be like, oh man, sucks. Like, I don't want to write another 7,000 words today. I'm sick of it. No, but for me, like,
Wait, do you write 7,000 words a day sometimes?
Sometimes.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, sometimes I write up to like 30 pages, 40 pages in a day. So those ones usually need a bit more editing. But yeah, man, and sometimes I'll just drop in, like write for 8-9 hours. Yeah. Well, I have.
I'm like, I feel so lazy now.
No.
Don't. Anything a day.
So here's the difference, though. You live in California, which is bright, beautiful, and sunny. You have lemon trees, and here I have snow. So I mean, going outside for more than 30 minutes results in severe like frostbite to the point where I could lose limbs. So
yeah, but I'm like an indoor kid. I don't go outside. I play video games and I look at the internet, and
sure.
If I go outside, my eyes hurt because
start to burn a little bit.
My skin starts to get burned.
Yeah, what's this tingling sensation? I don't know what's going on.
Allergies. Sure. Yeah.
Well, over the summer, the writing will probably slow down a bit, which is why I didn't put a definitive release date. But I would put out a tentative, like November, December timeline for the third book for multiple reasons. The first one being that like May, June, July, August, September. Like August here, I mean, we're looking at like 30 degrees. Yeah. So September here, we're looking at usually pretty negative. So I'm by that point, I'm back inside and writing at a much faster rate.
Weather does affect writing schedules.
Well, yeah, it does. And the second point there is that I really want people to read my books because they want to, but I also think that a fall timeline where people are usually more indoors and need something to do, I'd rather give them something to do when I know they're going to do it. Right. Like I'm not going to put it out in June where people are like, looking at a screen is hard. I just want fireworks, or I want, like, why can't July be here? That sort of thing. Well,
and we have very different views of the summer, I think, because in the summer it's like I want to stay indoors as much as possible because it's like 110 degrees outside and I start to melt.
That sounds amazing.
Different climates. The climate's better on the other side of the states or the continent.
Sure. Yeah. There you go. I do live in America. For people that have a lot of people seem to think that I live in Canada. No, I'm just really close to Canada. It's like an hour drive north of me, so not bad.
I think Luke Chimilenko lives in Canada. I think, right? He's Canadian. He lives up there.
Very possibly. I don't know if he lives in Canada. So Canada is huge. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. I think he lives in the same time zone as you.
Oh, cool. Central. Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. But so I guess weather does kind of affect writing schedule, but kind of off topic there. I digress. Sorry. What was the question again?
Nope. That was it. You answered. I asked if you were taking a break before you start book 3. You said you already took your break. Basically, you took a couple weeks off, and now you're back on your writing schedule. So you already started writing book 3, I believe. Correct?
Yes, I have. I'm about 4 chapters into it. That may vary because right now I'm kind of just writing like 10 to 20 pages at a time and calling it a chapter. So they might become longer or shorter depending. Usually it's just like, I'm done writing for the day, end of chapter. So I do have variance in my chapters because it's not a lot, but like they're not gonna just go really hardcore at it. But something I do to stave off that inevitable frustration of writing is, so I mentioned that this is my hobby, right? I don't really like watching television. I don't really like movies, just for the simple fact that I can't interact with them. So reading for me is another of my hobbies. And people are like, well, it's the same thing. You're just staring at something. No, well, but like in my own head,
imagination, yeah.
Yeah, in my own head, I'm right there with them. I'm in the battle with them. I'm fighting alongside them, all that fun stuff. And
it's not passive. It's active imagination.
Right. And video games, same deal. Like I can play video games. Downside to that is that I'm like a casual gamer. Like I would love to be able to be like, oh yeah, man, I know every stat bonus, every little thing for this. Like I'm really good at this, but I don't have the time to devote to that sort of thing.
I used to be that way when I was in my 20s and single and I didn't have a mortgage.
There you go.
Now, not so much. I don't have quite as much time to play video games. I think I get like an hour a week. If I'm just lucky to play, like I just got the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, nice.
I'm playing like the new Zelda game.
Oh, that sounds great.
And I get like an hour maybe during my lunchtime at work, which is at like 4 a.m. If I had already finished the podcast stuff and the writing stuff for the week, then I'm like, okay, here's your reward, 10 to 15 minutes or an hour of game time.
There you go. Very nice. Yeah. Well, what I do when I get kind of sick of writing is I switch books. So like, I'm actually, so this is the first time I've announced this anywhere is, there you go, Ramon. You're special. So I'm actually currently writing 3 series. So I'm writing the Divine Dungeon series, and I'm writing 2 additional series at the same time. I'm just focusing on them less than the Divine Dungeon series. So I'm about a quarter of the way done with another book. I haven't settled on the name of it yet. That's even further back in. Actually, they're all in the same universe, right? So they're all in the same universe. So this first one is a very long time before Dungeonborn, and the third series is a very long time after Dungeonborn. So there's going to be some really interesting crossover stuff, and we'll see how that plays out. But
are you writing about the floating dungeon in like the earlier series?
Cantor? He'll probably make an appearance.
Okay, because I'm thinking like he's the oldest dungeon that I could think of from your series that you mentioned. So like maybe he's sorry, just off the top of my head, or is this like prehistoric like times, like when they're just developing cultivation techniques and like how they're starting to figure it out.
Well, actually,
I don't want to make you give details about your story, but I'm super curious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. So the first series is basically going to be prequel stuff. Not really. It's just going to be before Dungeonborn. So I say prequel. It's not prequel. But
just an earlier time frame to the same universe, though. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm actually writing about the bad guys right now in that book. So, but another thing, like I said, is with the Shades of Grey deal, is my bad guys feel totally justified, in what they do, and and I mean, really, good and evil is a perception of the person that's having to live through the receiving or the end giving it out. I can't think of the name. Anyway, so a lot of things are done with good intentions.
Yeah, evil is in the eye of the beholder, I think they say.
Thank you. That's what I'm after. Thank you. Yeah, and so, evil is in the eye of the beholder. That's floating eye. Anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking like, oh, evil is in the eyes of the beholder. Yeah, something.
Yeah.
I see. We have the same joke references.
Yeah, I like it. But so those will be out eventually. Certainly no promises on those ones because, like I said, I'm focusing on the Dungeonborn series first. But I'm really enjoying writing them. Like I'm enjoying these stories as much or more than the first book I ever wrote, which was Dungeonborn.
Is that because it's just a fresh point of view?
It's stories you can tell now? Yes, it's fresh and it's really fun to write it. So that's really how I felt about the first book here. And
it's like that first date. It's really fun and interesting, and exciting, and this is moving into third base territory.
Yeah, which is also fun. But yeah, it's going to be real good stuff, guys, and I really hope you'll check it out when they come out. But probably not until next year for those ones.
Okay, let me ask you about the third book in the series. You said it's set in the future from this Divine Dungeon series. How far into the future is it set? Is it like modern times, or is it like?
So the third series, not the third book in this series, but the third series total. That one is going to be slightly more classically lit RPG.
Okay.
So like, you know, with in intelligence, wisdom, charisma, all that fun stuff, as denoted fields instead of as like personal internal values that you just are, you know. So slightly more classic lit RPG, but definitely not at all similar to how they are currently. So it's
But it's the same universe, right?
Yes. So it's
Okay,
a weird.
So I'm kind of curious to see how you're.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the big question for me.
Yeah, and it's I'm really liking that system. I'm really liking the system I'm setting up there. So we'll when that one comes out, man. Of course, you're the first to know everything. So you'll know before anyone else, and we'll geek out. We'll geek out about that. But I'm very much so enjoying it. Yeah.
Cool. Are you planning to release like sample chapters for those other series on like your website or your Facebook page at all?
Most likely, as it progresses. So like I said, the release dates for those are completely undetermined because book 3 takes precedence to me.
They're basically side projects at this point because you have your main series that you're working on. Book 2 is done. Book 3 is done. You have an audiobook coming out, and those are the big projects for you because that's your first love, you know.
Right, exactly.
These are their side chicks. They can take their time.
Yeah. Well, also it's more just being able to say like a lot of what I'll do is I'll be like, oh man, this is a really awesome concept, and I really would love to do this, but it wouldn't make sense for my character in this book to do it. So I'm like, wait a second, can I do it with this guy or this guy? Yeah, sweet. Write down in that book, you know, and then go back and make that a more fully fleshed out story. So it's just fun. It's just fun. And
I thought about doing something similar. Like sometimes you'll just have like this great story. You're like, oh, this is a great game mechanic, but then you look at your book and like, oh, it doesn't fit in there.
Exactly.
Like what is Scotty Funch does this all the time. He has like a bunch of different series, and he has Origins, ARS, and what was it the one like in an apocalyptic future, but one's fantasy. The one he just put out is like a real time, a turn-based strategy game mechanics.
Very cool.
He has Earth Defense Force, which is also turn-based strategy, LitRPG. I'm like, oh, this is all. I don't write that fast. I'm not that creative too. I have to focus at a time, otherwise it just won't get done. And that's just me. But I understand the feeling of like, oh, this is an amazing idea. I want to develop it, but I have this project it's doing really well, and I want to develop, and I want to be faithful to those readers who are invested in that series.
Exactly, and that's really what it breaks down to. Is making sure that like the people. Like I never expected to have a fan base. I really expected my first book to go out and be like, "Hey, mom, I see you bought my book. Thanks, bro." Or "Thanks, mom." You know, all that other stuff. Or like, "Hey, my buddy over here did." But it really took off thanks to you and to the LitRPG group and finding that niche. So again, thank you guys so much. Let's I guess get back to I'm really going off topic there, man. Sorry.
That's okay. Have you ever had that moment where like a fan sends you an email or a message on Facebook saying, "Thank you so much. This is such an amazing book. You're my introduction to LitRPG." How does that feel for you?
Pretty much amazing. So there's other authors out there that when I was first getting started writing, I was uncertain like how to move into this stuff, and I was like asking questions like, hey, I mean, how would you guys suggest I get published, or how would you suggest I do this? Like all this other stuff.
Because it feels like a big gigantic mystery when you're starting out. It's like, is there a magic fairy I have to like
exactly
reach out to or something? I mean, how do we do this?
Right. And I mean, there were a couple authors I talked to that just blew me off, and that was just the worst feeling. That was just like, oh man, that sucks. Like I understand you're busy and all that stuff. Like it's cool. There's also some that were like amazing and really, really helpful. And so like I wanted to thank, like Elron Kong. I want to thank Will White. And, those guys were really instrumental in helping me get started, which was really cool. I mean, definitely lots of other authors that I reached out to, but George R. Martin hasn't responded, and we'll see what happens. J.K. Rowling, she's like, go as D.K. Rowling, and I'm like, nah, it's cool. I'll just keep my own name. But no, I'm just kidding. Like I never talked to either of them, but that would be really fun.
No, but I think the authors in our community, in the LitRPG community, I think are very open about like talking to fans. So, I mean, we basically do on a daily basis within the LitRPG group. Like all the authors and all the fans very much intermingle and like give opinions and like
Yes.
comment on, because all the authors that I know that I've interviewed, they're also readers. They're fans.
Yeah. Oh,
They
absolutely.
started out, even if they don't have time to read anymore because they're writing so much, hopefully. They started out as like huge consumers in the genre, so they understand what these people who are just discovering LitRPG are going through and what they're looking for, and like how excited they can get for finding like their community, right? Like the type of fiction that they didn't know that they wanted until they read it. It's like
Right.
I mean, we all understand that.
Exactly. And you know, and that's another thing, like the people. Oh yes, so the reading versus where how much do you read versus how much do you write, and for me, I don't really have to choose, which is kind of cool, because I read at a just ridiculous speed, man. Like I'm not trying to brag, but I mean like ridiculous speed. Like I usually finish like any of the Land series in about an hour to an hour and a half. I read your book in about 45 minutes. Just because like you didn't write in a way that like I had to stop and like analyze charts, which was nice. You were like, hey, so here's what's going on. Like here's a little bit of stuff, but I didn't have to be like, okay, break it down. What's the best rate to do this? You were like really clear with your writing. And like just I'm kind of a speed reader, but I do that for fun and because I really get invested in the story to a point where I can't stop reading. So one that I was just reading was the Dark Paladin series, or the new first book by, I can't say his name, Russian writer, but has
Vasily Mahenko.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, the author of the
Excellent writer
series. Yeah.
Yes. Great series, both of those. So the Dark Paladin series, I opened the book and it said, oh, average time to read like 13 hours. I finished it in like 2.
You're like, challenge accepted.
Exactly. And it was great. I mean, great storyline, great plot line. Couldn't put it down, and that's the issue, because the more I like a book, the faster I read. So I had to have like my Kindle thing. I had to set it up so I can tap like quick, because if I try and do like a swipe thing, I actually had to slow down. So I usually just tap, and that's
Your reading speed is limited by physics, apparently.
It really pretty close there. But so the first Dungeon Madness came out at the end of, or at February 15th, and since then I've read about 40 books, and it's March 11th now, so it's been about a month, and if I didn't have Kindle Unlimited, I would be absolutely broke. So thank you, Amazon. A little shout out there,
I hear exactly what you're saying, man. I wish I read as fast as you, because that would let me get through these books a little bit faster. Because this week I'm reading like 8-9 books a week. I don't read as fast as you. I'll say. I just have the type of work I do. I end up doing this way. I have my phone read it to me.
Oh, cool.
Using a text to speech app. While I'm like working, I just plug in and it's like, do my work, and I can listen to it in like this weird Siri voice, and that's how I can get through my stuff, because I have more time to read, I think, than you do. You just read faster than me, though. So I'm like, it's kind of the trade-off. But I wish I read as fast as you do, apparently, because I could get through these books more. I wouldn't feel as bad for not getting through like 10 or 12 books that are coming out like every week this month, apparently.
Yeah, and that really helps with the breathe in, breathe out writing. So let me explain that. So how when you're writing, you're putting down like it sucks everything out of you, man. Like it sucks out emotion, it sucks out like what you're doing. You get so emotionally invested in, you get so like logically invested in it. Like everything that you're doing really goes into your book, and by the time you get done writing every day, you're like, I'm drained, like I need a break, just like with, work, like you by the end of it, you're drained. And so I say that the more you write, it's like breathing out, like breathing out without taking a breath, like go. And if you don't stop to like inhale, to like, take in another book, take in some, some other things, other hobbies, other, whatever else you want to do, but something different, that's how people get burnt out, is they just go until they can't handle it anymore, and then they just lose it. So the great thing about being able to read really fast is that I can breathe in really, really, really hard. And for a lot of readers, just like really go at it. A lot of readers, as you go that you live their life, man. You live their story, and you can cram a lot of lives into a short amount of time if you can read really fast. So I mean, it's been like a month since my second book came out, but it feels way longer. I mean, it feels way longer than that for me, because I've gone through the academy with the Dark Paladins. I've been building stuff up in the land. I've had to find clothes with the guys in Adventures on Terra. I've like all this other stuff, and it's great because you have all this fun that is all in your head too. But I mean, like, it's great because then you're like, oh man, like I see that. I really like that concept. Here's my take on it. Like, here's what I would do in that same situation. Yeah. And then you just kind of build those up over a period of time. And you're like, all right, cool. Like now I have an idea of what I want to see from my own book, because these guys are awesome. Like they write awesome books, and I want to do something as awesome. So here's my competing, or my competitive spirit is going on, and here's my competition, and at the same time my friends. So it's kind of like a weird amalgamation of stuff, and then that turns into a book, and people seem to like it, which I'm very appreciative of. I don't know what I'd do without them. Little shameless, this is actually empty. So just showing off some merchandise, guys. It's cool. So we have, I have merchandise. Yeah, man, I have merchandise. This is cool, merch, man. We have Miko, the guy that does the cover art for my books. He has a shop on Designed by Humans, and he's like, hey man, would it be cool to put your stuff up there? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll be your first and best customer. Like, I mean, I'm gonna switch out my whole wardrobe with this stuff, man. See me at Dragon Con, I'm just gonna like have on the hat, sweater, t-shirt underneath.
LitRPG authors walking together with all their own merchandise on.
Yeah, there you go. I'll start out like really fluffy, and then just keep giving people shirt off my back, and then pull one out of my backpack, put it back on. Yeah.
Oh no, you should get a t-shirt cannon and just pop one throughout the con, just like people just knock people over left and right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like people from a distance wouldn't recognize this or who I am. So like I'd be like really close when I had to fire it off, and I don't know if that'd go over well,
No, you disguise it as cosplay, as a proton pack from Ghostbusters.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and then like once you're inside, you just like zip down the jumper, and you're like, haha, I'm in. We could do like a whole LitRPG video serial about like you getting to the con to give out your merchandise.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Like disguise yourself in cosplay first. Yeah.
Just like chase people down. Get back here! I got a cannon you.
You won't take this T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, wear this. I'd give someone a shirt if they would wear it. Yeah, I'd do that for merchandising for me, for sure for them. Good times.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope to like look at some stuff online to make merchandise for LitRPG Podcast and Adventures on Terry, just to give out T-shirts at Dragon Con, or like at the LitRPG Gala, which is the same time as Dragon Con. It's like it gets a little pricey, but I shouldn't complain because it's basically kind of a tax write-off, according to my tax lady. So I shouldn't complain.
Right? Yeah. Sorry, let's keep going here. I'm really going off tangent a lot.
No, you basically answered another one of my questions. I asked you if you've read any great books recently,
yes.
And you answered that perfectly already. You said The Land. You said mine. Have you seen what's the name? Is Michael Chatfield? He does the Amaryllis series, I believe, and he's putting out a book a month, like a 430-page book a month, which is absolutely I'm stunned by that writing. And they're like fully like edited. I see the book too. I'm like, yeah, like double plug.
Yeah, see, I see my book there in the back corner over there. So I'm like, I can do the same thing here. Adventures on Terra, great book, guys, great book.
Audiobook.
If you know the author, they sign it, which is really nice. This is great. I've been trying to get more authors interested in the book exchange, actually. And you were great because you didn't even exchange. You're just like, here's my book, man. And I was like,
yeah,
cool.
you already given me your book, so it's like you already did already.
Right. Well, I mean, I still appreciate it, and other authors out there, guys. I'd love to have your books, and I'm really trying to get a collection of authors like signed books. So if you would like mine, I would love to have yours. So
Me too.
Yeah. Hey now, but yeah,
exchange buddies. It's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
We can just say like on t-shirts. I exchange it with other authors.
Yeah. Oh shit. There you go. New interesting idea for a shirt. I like that. Who wouldn't want Adventures on Terra? Yeah, that's like a button. It's like, yeah. Anyway. All right. So what's next?
Okay. Next question. Let's see. With book 2 being so successful, what do you think helped you to actually get to where you are with book 2? Like you had your book 1 experience, and that's just from like a personal. It's all new in book 1. It's your first time publishing. It's your first time writing. Generally, for a lot of LitRPG authors, you have to learn all these different nooks and crannies about the Kindle Direct Publishing and making a real book and like a physical book and like an audio book, and everything's a new skill. Right. But with book 2, you already know all that stuff. So what have you learned between book 1 release and book 2 release that made book 2 such a good success?
So I'd like to say that I've learned how to be a good author, but we'll see. The reviews seem to like it. Majority of them. So I guess with what I've learned was, I mean, KDP is super easy to use. I highly recommend it for people that are just trying to get their books out there. I think for me, the biggest change was that in the second book, I was able to write it so fast because by that point, I understood my characters' mindsets. Like I understood how they would react in conversations or how they would react in certain situations. And it was less difficult to write them because I knew how their character would be. Like I didn't have to like introduce a character and bring him up from square one. Like right. Here's how he goes. I hate writing backstory, by the way. Like I really don't like going and saying like, hey, here's a new character. Let's go off tangent and tell you about his childhood. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that because if you were to meet me in the street and you walked up to me and the first thing I did was start telling you all about my life. Like, oh yeah, so I've done this. I've been in the army. When I was a child, I lived on a farm, all this fun stuff. I used to jump off bridges for swimming because it was fun. And, it'd be like, get away from me, crazy person.
Well, see, I have a different point of view to be like, oh, we're friends now then. You've disclosed all this information to me that we must be friends. That's what I would think.
Yeah, like, well, you'd think that, but I'm saying like random dude walks up to me on the street, has a sword, and he starts telling me about his life. I'm going to be like, you're weird. Like, get away from me. Because like in real life, you don't walk up to someone and suddenly meta kind of know everything about them and their situation, how they've gotten there.
I hear what you're saying, but I think we're different people because I would think like a guy walks up with a sword, like, it's happened, isn't it? Like, status screen or like, you have a quest for me. Is that what this is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, just like, yeah, I got that. Like, I'm with you. No, I'm with you on that. Like, I totally agree. Like, I'd be like, all right, game on. Put me in the game. We're good. Let's do this. I'd be a mage, please. So, but like, like when just getting up to someone, unless they're like a public figure or something like that, you don't know their past.
Right. I know what you're saying. As far as like character development, because your books emphasize realism. Right. As opposed to like a lot of other, including mine. Mine's very much less realistic than yours. I use levels and skill trees and experience points, which is all very gamified.
And they're fun.
Yours, you use something that feels like on a different historical timeline in Earth, it could very much happen. Like if Eastern philosophies took off and like cultivation became like a mainstream thing in cultures, this could potentially happen in like some parallel universe potentially. But and including those consequences are social constructs. Like it's impolite to blabber on to people that you don't know about your life story when they didn't ask, and things like that. So I get that that's what you're kind of leaning towards, I think.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, this is all personal preference to writing. So I have nothing against other people who write that, because typically, well, I mean, typically if you put that in your book, there's a good reason for it. Like, hey, this is going to be someone that you should know these things about. And I mean, it's definitely interesting a lot of the time. It's definitely like good story. But in my books, it just doesn't make sense to like say, like, all right, so here comes Nez, like the swordsman in the second book. He's introduced it fairly late in the book. Like, you have no backstory about him. You have no idea. This dude is just zipping around with a sword. Like,
be mercenary number 3.
Yeah, exactly. But all of a sudden, like, has a huge role in the book because, like, he's really good, you know? And also because someone won the Facebook competition that I was doing at the time, and that's how Nez got in the book. Or like Minya, right? You don't know her backstory, except that she tells someone like, hey, in order for you to trust me, you had to know this. So here's a little tiny bit, but it's not like, hey, growing up, I was,
because she's attracted to establish trust. And socially, when you want somebody to trust you, one of those ways to do is to disclose personal secrets about yourself, because then you're creating a social bond with another entity. And that's what she's basically doing. There's not just, oh, I'm social, I want you to know everything about me. It's very much like, these are my personal secrets. I want you to trust me. So I'm giving you the key to my past and my pain, so that we have that emotional connection, and you can feel like you can trust me.
Exactly. And otherwise, typically, in friendships and in all these other things just kind of come up naturally in conversation. Like, it's not like, hey, here's an info dump about my life. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, man, I can do that. I mean, I worked, as whatever for X amount of years. And then people are like, oh shit, dude, that's cool. Or that's awesome. Like, I didn't know that about you. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. And then you might have a conversation about it from there. But otherwise, I mean, you don't know that about people. You just had to. Are
you saying that you don't have a resume about your life that you give to every person that you want to be friends with?
Oh man, is that what I've been doing wrong? Jeez.
Because I am doing this wrong apparently, because I have a character sheet that says Ramon Mejia on it. I just added level 1 author.
Oh yeah, right. Come on, man. You've gone up a few levels since then. You're at least like what, like, so it went from novice to apprentice at least now. So
okay, I'll go with apprentice.
There you go. Like I would consider myself very much novice-y apprentice level myself. So like, you're at least at my level or higher at this point, because you also have the podcast and all the other fun stuff. It's just I don't know. I go for a level of realism in my book, like where. Kind of like you said, like it could be an alternate timeline sort of deal. But basically I'm just trying to replace science with magic. But just like anything, like everyone's like, oh, science is an art. No, it's not. No, science is exactly. Science is a science, right? Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, magic could be either way. It depends on how you're taught. Like if you're like, hey, there's these runes, and these runes have these specific, like, you do this in this order and this happens. You do this in this order and it happens.
That's very much coding.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I'm a programmer, so.
Yeah, me too. That's the way I come with my spell writing. I'm like, coding, magic coding.
Exactly. It's like, hey, do this, else do this. Like it's an if statement. Like if magic is applied, activate effect. Or else remain. Like at 0 or whatever. Go to 1, depending on your programming language. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like it's just trying to make things as logical as possible and as while remaining fun. And
I think that I mean this is kind of going off tangent, but I think that background of ours, and where we're very much logic based individuals, and it's kind of what draws us to LitRPG in general, because there are worlds that make sense and they have rules.
Exactly.
And as long as you understand those rules, you can do well, because you understand almost the very nature of that universe, and you can map out your characters, whatever the case is. And I think that's something that a lot of new authors who are coming into the genre just don't quite get. Like they're very much about story, they're very much about entertainment, which is great.
Right.
But I think they miss that portion of it, and I think it's just because that's not the kind of person they are. They're the creative person. They're the person who's been writing their whole life, and they kind of miss out on that particular aspect of logic systems.
Right. No, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I mean, definitely not to knock other authors out there, but like, you know, everyone has something that they're looking for in a story. Typically when you write, you're writing something that you would want to read. And for us, you know, that's like, hey, I want defined systems that make sense. You know,
Yes.
I don't want someone to just be able to go, and poof, things happen. You know, I want like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? You know, like what's going on, you know, because otherwise people get confused and confused people don't enjoy writing or reading your books.
I think a lot of this is also that we read those stories where it is just,
no explanation
because, or, you know, Spellicus, and it doesn't make sense within a logic system, and that kind of hurts my brain in that I don't understand the logic behind it or the system behind it, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it feels like you just waved a magic wand, and sometimes that's exactly what you did, but it's my brain is very much set up on things making sense, and RPGs especially do that for me. It gives video game terms or like tabletop terms or whatever it is. Those systems, math-based, logic-based, things connecting, like branching out, maximization of skill trees or character builds or whatever, those things make sense to me. And so that's part of, sorry, that was me. That's my mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I accidentally tapped it. But those are the things that draw me into it. So I think you're absolutely right in that that's the kind of story that I wanted to create, a world that had rules that make sense, because this one doesn't sometimes.
Right. Yep. And it doesn't hurt that you're as the author, you have unlimited power in that world. So yes. No, in the sense that, you know, like you can say like, hey, this is what I want to read. And every book up till this kind of skirts around this. I want to say that, and I can, because I'm the author, dang it.
Yeah.
And with you, it works very well. So, oh, thank you. Yeah. So I've pulled this really heavily off topic a little bit there. So I'm just trying, because I know you have a time frame here. So for maximum amount of, oh no, how long you? I mean, oh cool. All right,
remember this?
All right, cool. All right, yeah.
So they do all the server stuff, man. This is like, if your furniture arrives at your house, we'll put a pause in it. But other than that, we can go on for like forever, man. I'm hopped up on this. This episode of the LitRPG Podcast is brought to you by caffeine.
Yeah, there you go. So all right.
But yeah, so I mean, we like I said, we got off a little off topic, but yeah, I think that's one of the things. I'm trying to knock other authors either. I know that they're basically better authors than me, so I get that they're good at their craft.
Right.
But it's like, as a reviewer, I see these issues again and again where they want to be lit RPG, and they just don't quite get that particular portion of it. Like they're like, I've been taught my whole life, don't tell these numbers, don't show the background stuff, don't show skill trees, don't take people out of the immersions of the storyline. And some authors have intentionally, like they said, I'm like on other forums, like I'm taking out all the stuff that they want. Are they going to get mad at me? I'm like, yes, they are. Yes, exactly. Very much. Like, you know, and it's frustrating as all heck to me, because as a reader and as a consumer, I'm like, these are the things that I love to see, and I keep saying it, and authors and some of the new authors, they're like, they get mad about it because they feel like they know how to write better, and like they do not write better, of course, but like in this particular genre, that's what people like.
Exactly.
Like it's just so hard, and it's almost heartbreaking because their stories are really good, and I have to give them bad reviews because they say they're lit RPG and they're not. And I'm like, oh man, I like the story, but there was nothing lit RPG about it, and like, it's sci-fi, or it's video game fiction, or it's, you know, whatever. And that's just what happens sometimes. And I always want every author I've ever read to do well in their story, and I have to be honest about my critique sometimes. And I you know, but that's just me ranting a little bit as a
no, totally. I mean, that makes sense, and a lot of people are definitely going to agree with you on that.
Yeah. Back to your questions though. Sorry. Okay. Audiobook. That is something that's new, as in like literally you talked about it today. That's the only reason I know about it. You have your first audiobook for Dungeon More coming out. I think it said March 28th was what it said on Tantor.com. I don't know if that's completely accurate, if that's like a tentative date for them, but you have the first sample of your narrator reading that for you. So tell me about that experience of creating an audiobook.
So that was pretty interesting. So again, wasn't expecting to have an audiobook in the first place. So because I, for most of the time, I thought like, if I'm going to have an audiobook, I'm going to have to record it. And I mean, I like writing, but who's going to want to listen to my voice for 8 hours? I mean,
No, I thought that too, yeah. I tried that out, and I did it on my stuff. I'm like, oh no, I listened to it, I'm like, no, this is not a skill set I have.
Right.
Find a professional.
Yeah. So I mean, so I was just like, you know what? Without an audiobook, it happens. You know, it's a good book anyway. And then Tantor got a hold of me, which was really cool. And they're like, hey, you know, we want to do an audiobook of your book. Are you interested? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. They you know, suggested a few different guys that would do or be able to, you know, fit the voice that I was looking for. I currently have Vikas Adams as the author, and he's spectacular. Really, I mean, great guy, great acting, great voice. He's done a few other LitRPG guys.
Now, did you actually speak to him about your novel?
Oh yeah, I have him on speed dial. Yeah, he's like top 15 most called people on my phone. I don't talk to many people, but still, like, you know, it's pretty good. So he was great. I mean, the whole experience, like, he'd call me and he'd be like, hey man, I'm reading through chapter 6 and I see a context switch here. Do you intend to do that? And I'm like, yes, that's supposed to be an Easter egg later on, like, because a lot of people, they'll message me and they'll be like, hey man, I noticed an error in your book. And I'm like, is it though?
Is it?
And they're like, pretty sure you've said this and I'm sure you meant this. And I was like, no, I meant what I said. Sometimes, like, there was, you know, he has found a couple errors where he's like, hey man, I'm reading through this and this doesn't even make sense because the sentence just ended midway through the sentence.
Yeah.
So that, you know,
happened to me.
Yeah, and
like,
and
people my audio reading, I'm like, oh, I need to rewrite that sentence. That doesn't sound right to me anymore.
Right, exactly. Or, like, you know, sometimes you'll just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna redo this, and sometimes like a chunk of a sentence will just remain there, and it's unfortunate, but you know, and so he's like found a couple errors where he's like, hey, I don't want to say this out loud because it doesn't make sense. So what's the actual correct version? And I'm like, oh, it's this. And then he'd be like, cool. All right, I'm going to go back to my, you know, house on the beach here. And yeah, no, just kidding. But yeah, he calls and he's like, hey man, I'm writing, I'm doing this, or I'm reading, I'm doing this stuff. And I either found this or I did this, or, hey, what's the personality of the person that you're for, like, you know, here, like, how do you want this to sound? Do you want them to have an accent? I mean, he is great and a professional. If you have the option to use Vikas, I would definitely like recommend him, because he's also like super fun. Like you know, like I heard the first bit of the audio. Like, there's just a little snippet out, little teaser, and you know, it starts out, and I'm like, at first I'm like, I don't know if this is Cal. But then he actually like says the first words, and I'm like, oh my god, I love it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And like, I personally, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Because I know I felt the same way when I heard my narrator just speaking my character's voices. I was like, once you hear it, and it's like, oh, click. Yep, that's it.
Yep.
No one else needs to apply.
Right. Exactly.
This position, it's been filled.
Right. And plus, like, it's also really interesting to like get someone else's interpretation of how my character is, you know, because like there's a few things where I'm like I put in certain emphasis on words in my head, and I try and mirror that really closely in the book, like, you know, like little dashes that like in, you know, like in a comma you can like separate it out instead of using parentheses or something. And or like, you know, just italices or bold or something like that, and he hits those pretty well. But it, like, even with the emphasis how it's supposed to be, sometimes it's like, is that how people are taking that? You know, like, and so it's just really cool to have that, like, because 100 people can read the same book and have a totally different experience every time, and it's just really cool to me. So they're gonna have the same experience because someone's reading it to them. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. So I'm really looking forward to that because I get a free copy. So.
Oh, no, I think they give you more than one free copy. I think they give you some for like audiobook.
Yeah, so
you know,
I get
like 25 from Audible. They're like, oh, here's 25 free ones to give out to people to promote your book.
Man. I'm gonna have
And I'm
to
like,
drive a harder
hey, I
bargain
think I
next
gave
time.
out 2. And I'm like, the rest are just kind of sitting there. Maybe we'll give them away or something to give away.
I think I get 6 total, and I'm trying to get. I tried to do a thing on Facebook a while back where I was like, hey guys, if you feel the need that you need an audiobook, let me know and I'll try and get one to you. Because for instance, my aunt is blind, and she really wants to read the book but she can't.
Right.
So, well, pretty much blind anyway. And so for me, like that's a totally legitimate reason. I'm gonna give her an audiobook,
Yeah.
And so I tried to put it out there. We're like, hey guys, if you have a good reason, like that you would want an audiobook, just tell me. I'm not going to make it a competition. I'm not going to do that. I just want to know, like, tell me your story, why you need it, and I'll try and get it to you. And no, man, it was crickets. Like, I mean, it kind of makes sense, like, because everyone on Facebook is probably going to be pretty well versed in reading. So.
Well, I think you just asked a bunch of people to give you their life story.
Well, no.
And I think we previously established that is apparently not socially correct.
Oh, jeez. Well, I put it up on LitRPG group too. Just like, hey, who wants a free copy? And just crickets, man. Like, I'm like, oh man. At first, I was just like, oh man, no one wants it. But then I realized like people are super cool. Like they're like, you know what? Someone else is going to need this more.
Yeah. It's very much like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and that's just the coolest thing. Like, all the people that are have liked and followed my page on Facebook, or the people on the LitRPG group, they've all just been just the best people, and it kind of blows me away. Like, because they're like, oh man, here's a chance for a free audiobook, like 13 hours of great times, and they're like, you know what, someone else is gonna need it more, and I'm just like, you guys are amazing. Again, like I can't even say that enough. I just have the best fans. So
no, we absolutely do. I agree 100%. Yeah. But this one of the things I talk about the most with, if I go on another podcast to talk about LitRPG or just some writing an article, or even on the podcast itself, it's the community that to me is the best resource and the most amazing part of our genre. I mean, the books are amazing and I love reading them, but it's the community that's kind of grown around it, and that we're all very similar in our love and our enjoyment for this one thing. And that to me is very rare, because it's never happened to me before with other, I'm not part of a fantasy group where I'm this involved. I don't have a sci-fi podcast that I just had to make because nobody else was serving our community this way, and I wanted to give back to it. And so that to me is like, I agree with you. It's our community that's our greatest treasure.
For sure. Absolutely. All right.
Okay, so there you go. Audiobook stuff. Check.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I think actually that's all my questions. So oh, see, there we go. He sent you. Did he sign that for you?
Oh, this? Yes, he did. Just got this in the mail for some reason. I'm just kind of like cycling through the good books I've been getting. Really good one here.
I have that one too. I think I ran into those, but.
Sure. What's funny? I don't have any copies of my own book yet. I just, because I got a box of them I ordered a box of them, and I immediately just sent them out.
Me too. I'm out. Yeah. I just yeah. But I didn't get a land one. I'll have to talk to him about that.
He was the first. He was the very first person to sign up for the book exchange. So that was really cool. I moved recently to a new place, and it got lost in the mail because of it. So they're like, oh, well, he sent it here, but you're here, so there's more postage, so we're just going to hold on to it. And like, I think he sent that like 2-3 months ago, like seriously, like back in like Christmas time, and I just got it. And not at all because of his fault, but like I haven't even yet written him a thank you note yet. So like literally just pulled that out of the mail basically, because
there you go. He just got his big thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Elron. You're awesome.
Okay, yeah. Well, those are all my questions from my personal questions, author questions, chit chat and stuff. We'll go on to questions from the audience. We have a couple of those. They're really good. Some of these are from recently new to the community questions, like Takara Mitsumi. She actually has 3 questions for you. Your books have great sales rankings, especially book 1, which has been out for a while. What are you doing to market your books and keep the sales momentum? Or is this a result of your books being in Kindle Unlimited?
A little bit of both. So for me, something we talked about is that this is a hobby for me. This is something that I do for fun and for personal enjoyment. And I think that kind of reflects in my book because, people feel that, like, I wrote to have a good time. I wrote for enjoyment. I didn't write it for readers. Like, I didn't write it for anyone in particular except for me. So if you have my same sense of humor, you're gonna like the book. Yeah. Part of it is that I think that it resonates with a certain subset of the population, which is awesome. I do push it out. I have a few different like subreddits that I post to. I do Imager or Imgur, depending on how you say it. Like you throw up a post every once in a while, like, "Hey, I wrote a book. Check it out." But also definitely Kindle Unlimited. So when I first put out the book, I put it on Kindle Unlimited because it's free. And that means that more people are going to read the book.
Right.
And that was like the thing for me. Like, I was like, I don't care if I make $0. I do not care one whit. Like, I'm putting this out there and I'm doing this, like, I'm pressing the button, I'm publishing a book, and I wouldn't have cared if I didn't make any money at all. I just want people to read it.
Right.
And that it came back as overwhelmingly positive reviews was like mind-boggling, just like I said, I didn't expect, people to really read it. And multiple tens of thousands have now, which is pretty amazing to me. Like, I have people on different continents sending me messages. It really took off in Finland and Denmark, which was cool. Australia.
Well, I've seen like my Kindle numbers as well in Finland. Like people are reading it in France and Germany and like Japan and Finland. I'm like, wow, this. I mean, it's not like a ton of people. Most of my sales are from like the United States,
right?
But like international, I'm like, oh, I think there's like one guy in Finland. I'm like, oh, I think I know exactly who that is. I've talked to him in the group before.
Right, and a shout out to New Zealand. I guess not a lot of people, talk about them, but yeah, they read. So yeah, go you guys.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Just so everybody knows, people in New Zealand do read. We're making that a factual statement.
Great. Otherwise, yeah. So pushing sales is not something I really do.
Yeah.
I put it up like, hey guys, here's this like tiny bit of free marketing that I can do. So go for it. And that seems to have worked out pretty well. Beyond that, like the Facebook group, LitRPG, you have a fairly dedicated fan base there where they'll say like, hey, what books are coming out, because I'm a voracious reader and I need to know. And you're like, hey, I put this one up and it's kind of like what you're after. And then people are like, all right, cool. So that was great. And then they tell their friends and their friends and all that fun stuff. So I haven't put any money into marketing. I haven't done anything like that. I mean, I can't. Student loan debt. But like,
what is that, a PhD and a master's program? Do you pay off? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, it's like this, like I said, this is a hobby. It's not something I can dedicate money toward. That it took off was surprise to me more than anything. So, beyond that, yeah, I do put it up on social media sites, some stuff like that, just every once in a while, like, hey guys, if you haven't read this, check it out, because I like it. So I hope you do too. But the biggest thing I think was Kindle Unlimited, just to get people interested at all in the book.
They feel like they're not taking a risk.
Exactly.
Because they've already paid their $9 for the month. So anything they read is just like, oh, I'll take a chance because it's in their minds, it's free.
Right. Exactly. And that's perfect. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people to read it. And that was all that was important to me. And so I can't really offer much advice on that, on that front of marketing, because I don't really do it. So sorry.
I feel like a lot of times our stories are very similar in that we both just wrote a story and we put it up on Amazon. We pressed publish, not expecting anything, and then there's apparently a fan base that developed, or people read it, and we're both like super surprised, like, wait, you're not my mom and you're reading this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I hear exactly what you're saying. And as far as marketing goes, it's like, yep, Facebook, Twitter, social media is free marketing. But again, I think this is probably the extent of like most of the marketing that a lot of LitRPG authors get to do is
Right.
like, oh, I show up on this podcast that I do.
Right.
And, you know, that's kind of it for most people.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, yep, the podcast definitely, yep, that helps.
I mean, this isn't really marketing. That's why I'm like, from my perspective, or like from yours, I think it's just like, we like having conversations and talking to people who like the things you like, and it's fun. But it also does it. I mean, and I understand that's like an existential sort of way. Like, other people look at this and they kind of base their decisions, sometimes reading decisions, on the things that, you know, we talk about or the reviews that get made. And I kind of get that, but for me, it's just like, oh, I'm just talking about the stuff I love, and you're one of those things.
Oh, well, thank you, buddy. But yeah, and another thing, one little tiny thing was the cross promotions in the second book.
Yeah.
So sorry, I had forgotten about this one. But you know, something great is other authors out there, you know, they will promote your book if you promote theirs. And right. I think I have your book at the end of book 2. You know, so it's like, hey, if you liked my book, here's another amazing author, Ramon. You know, like, go check him out because he's amazing. And hopefully, you know, you saw a sales bump there, because I'm fairly certain that I got one as well, like from other authors that have put me at the end of their books. Right. And that's something I'm always looking for, is like to do those promotions with other people, because, you know, if people are reading your book, I want them to know, like, that, hey, there's more books out there. You've hit the end of the series. Well, hey, here's other books that you can read in the interim while I'm writing. You know, you know, but keep them in the family. You know,
it's also very much like, oh, I love these books. So you know,
right, exactly.
Go read them, and you know, they'll tell you about my book as well, because I assume you like it if you're reading it.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Sure. All right. So you said she had 3. So that was number 1.
That was one. The second one you kind of sort of answered, but there's an additional portion of it. Are you going to make your books wide anytime soon? So, and by that, you're going to be publishing it outside of the Amazon ecosystem, like whether it's Barnes & Nobles or somewhere else.
So yes and no. So currently you can get my books at barnesandnoble.com, but you can't get it in the store.
Right.
So I'm kind of working on that ish. Like
your ebook, or is that a physical copy of Barnes & Nobles?
That's a physical copy. So ebook is only available currently through Amazon. And that does have the exclusivity due to Kindle Unlimited. Mm-hmm. So like I don't want to try and tempt fate there by putting it up somewhere else. But yeah, so I mean, you can get the book on multiple retailers. I'm working right now. Actually, I've been talking to a couple of publishing companies. They contact me, you know, because they're like, hey, we've been seeing that you have overwhelmingly positive reviews on your books, and we'd like to work with you.
Right.
And one of those is offering to take the books and translate them as part of the deal, as so if you're French and you want to read Dungeonborn within like 60 days of signing on with them, you could have the French copy, and hopefully grammatically correct, because I cannot read French. I'm sorry. I really hope it's not machine translated. I hope it's like an actual person going through, like working on it. But that's one of those things I'm looking for, is trying to open it up to a wider market. And we'll see what happens there. So the short answer, yes, I'm trying to open up to wider markets. Long answer, it might be a while. So
right, because there's a bunch of negotiations, cross-bidding, seeing what works for you the best. But I think your goal basically is to get your stories into as many other languages as possible. It seems to be a primary focus for what you're looking for, and less about profit. I mean, making money is important because you have bills to pay, and this is nice supplementary income.
Exactly.
But I think for both of us, it's like, oh, we just want people to read our stories and enjoy them, and have a good time.
Yep, that's exactly it. Like, more than anything, I just want people to I want them to be like, oh my gosh, that's Dakota Krout, or hey, like you go and you see like, oh my gosh, this is George R. R. Martin. Like I would love to be like, have people come up to me like, oh my gosh, you're the author of Dungeonborn. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, hug me. Yes, you actually know who I am. That's amazing. And I don't want them to have to be like, hey, your book is like $30. I don't know who you are because I couldn't ever afford to buy your book. And
Right.
like, that's the thing. Like I've been there, I think there was one semester where I was, I started out at community college and I had to work out a deal with the school because I couldn't get a loan. So I was like, hey, I'll pay my tuition like rent, I'll pay like X amount of dollars every month. And so like semester ended and I had 30 cents in the bank account. And I've been to the point where it's like, I don't have the spare cash to go and buy that book, even though it looks great. And that's the thing with like Kindle Unlimited. I know there's a monthly subscription with Kindle Unlimited, but I mean, it's the best that I can do really without putting up for free. And,
Right.
and, I mean, I've been in that position and I want to open it up to as many people as absolutely possible, so I'm not even too concerned about the Russians that, have already ripped it off and pirated it up on their sites. Cause it's like, hey, the book is free. Like the book is free. I don't know why you stole it and pirated it and put your own name on it, but someone out there is reading it and enjoying it. That's cool.
Wait,
it's fine.
Well, I get that they want like to read your story, but you're saying that they claim that.
Oh yeah, they slapped their own name.
What they did?
Yeah, totally. There's like 3 or 4 Russian sites that have it up, and one of it is still in English. So I mean, but I mean, it does have viruses. So woo.
Because me personally, once I did the audiobook for Dungeon Terror came out like last week, and it's already up on like pirate sites.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, to me, that's like a compliment. Like, oh wait, somebody liked this thing enough that they want to like pirate it and give it away for free. Because I understand that
but it's like
are relatively more expensive than ebooks. They're like minimum $15, and if you don't have Audible, then it's like $30. And like that's kind of expensive for entertainment. But I mean that's just their price. I have no decision making in that particular respect. But it is to me is kind of like a compliment saying, oh, it's on this pirate site that I was just visiting for research purposes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just to see if it's there. See, I wasn't the one that found it. A couple other people are like, "Hey, man, your book is up over here. Should you do something about it?" And it's like, "Well, that's Russia, so
what can you do?"
Yeah,
it's the internet.
Yeah, and but that's the thing. Like I'm saying, like my book is out there for free.
Yeah,
I don't particularly care about people having ripped it off because, again, it's free. What I care about is like people like, hey, this is mine. Like I did this.
That's the part I have an issue with as well as like, oh, the credit portion. I'm like, wait, I spent 6-7 months of my life writing this book and editing it and getting it nice for everybody, paying for cover art and all that stuff, and you're gonna try to steal credit for my thing?
Like I mean, you already took the book. What more do you want? Like seriously,
I'm like, just fine, leave my name on it, give it for free. I don't care.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I care. So like American authors, I do have copyright privileges. I'm just saying, but
internationally unenforceable.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, I mean, the intent there is to say like, hey, I mean, you have access to it for free. Just like, I just want that count. Like like for me in my own mental space, I'm like, I want an accurate count of how many people have read the book. So like, if like I were to put out a book and like 3 people read it, I wouldn't put out another book in that series. I'd just be like, it's dead. It's cool.
Like it's like a gauge for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's like, oh, this went nowhere, no one wanted it, no one kept it, I'd be like, all right, cool, whatever. But if like it's just because someone ripped it off and I have no idea what the count is, they're going to be waiting a very long time for a second book. On the plus side, at least their anger wouldn't be directed at me. So
that is definitely a good way to look at it. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, question number 3.
Okay, we're just still on the same ones. She's asked, do you have a mailing list? If so, what are you doing to keep your fans on the list?
Well, I have your names, so no, just kidding. So I do have a mailing list. It's available on my Facebook page, The Divine Dungeon. And basically what I do is for anyone who's on my mailing list, they get the first 3 or 4 chapters of the book 2 weeks before anyone else. So the book went out for pre-order. Anyone on the mailing list got access to that those 3 or 4 chapters. And some people are like, oh, spam filters took it, totally. Oh yeah, I totally, want it and all that. But so I just set up an Insta freebie thing where they had to sign onto the mailing list in order to get the book again. But I mean, yeah, I'll give it to you. Like it's not so much like, I need you to have it because I'm going to put out things every day. I'm going to email you all the time. It's like, no, if you're on the mailing list, that's a good thing for both of us, because then I can be like, oh yeah, check it out. There's like 1,000 people on my mailing list and they all want to hear
really?
updates.
1,000 people on your mailing list?
Pretty close, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, if you're going to be on the mailing list, why not follow the page? Because like, whatever. Yeah, I know. It does like a click of the button, instead of having to check your emails. But yeah, so I mean, that was really cool. But I don't. One of the things I said was, I'm not going to put out updates unless it's like super important. Like, hey, I broke both hands and like part of my tongue got shaved off, so there's no way that I can type out this book, so it's going to be a longer wait or something like that. Or it's like, hey, all the people on the mailing list, like, here's something that's coming out, something really cool, or like, here's a promotion, like something that's actually useful. I'm not going to be like, hey, well, I wrote an extra chapter today and I want accolades. No, I'm not going to do that.
You're not spammy about it.
Exactly. Like, pretty much the mailing list is there for the benefit of the reader. So, and that's again that's just how I see it. I don't know how other people treat their mailing lists. I don't know what they do, but I think maybe the reason that I have people joining my mailing list is that I don't spam. Like, literally the only way to get those chapters a couple of weeks beforehand is to be on the mailing list. And I think that's the only piece of mail that I have ever sent out on there was that. So
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's an interesting way to do it. I do things. I have a mailing list for the LitRPG Podcast, which is just essentially the show notes for the podcast. I'm like a link to the episode and everything, and that goes out weekly. But it's like, 40 people at this point. So I'm like, it's not quite as intense as your readers, but obviously you send things out a lot less. So I'm like, to me, like the mailing list isn't as useful because I have the platform already with the podcast.
Exactly.
I have a website, I have a recommendation list, which comes up every time anybody searches on Google for LitRPG. It's like that on the first page. So I kind of have those different places where I'm already talking and communicating with the audience I'm looking for.
Right.
So the mailing list to me is like less important. It's like more convenient for like someone else. Is like sort of the people who get it. Like, oh, I don't always have time to look at Facebook every day, and so getting it in the mail is like very convenient as far as like a list of reviews or the podcast.
Right.
Okay. So next question. This one is from Jay Taylor. He asks, Dakota has stated that he's already started on book 3. So his question is, how do you keep that kind of momentum going when writing? And do you ever take a break and step back in shock at the fan reactions?
Definitely do take breaks, but typically my breaks are more just focusing on a different aspect of things. Like, hey, I can't physically make myself write anymore because my hands are getting carpal tunnel or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over the book. I'm going to read through it and make sure that I'm not putting out just dreck. The fan reaction? Yes. So I had a moment after the first book came out, and the first day that it came out, it hit number one bestseller on Amazon. And to me, like, 2 things happened simultaneously. I saw that and I said, I need to get the next book out as soon as possible. Like, let's do this, let's go. And then I also stepped back and I realized, like, hey, I'm not taking any time right now to enjoy this. Like, this is a number 1 bestseller. My mind is freaking blown. Like, I cannot believe that enough people wanted to read this, that, it went somewhere, and I don't even know how to say that. Like, I took a step back to look at it, but the momentum, I keep going by either editing and like moving through, like reading the story and be like, oh man, this is so good. I want to see this happen. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the author. I can make that happen. Or I switch to a different context. Like I'm working on a couple of different books at the same time that will possibly eventually get out. We'll see. So I keep up the momentum also because, I can't be outside right now because it's still deathly cold. Like,
see, again, weather, weather for good writing, apparently.
Yeah, well, yeah. So hopefully that answered your questions.
Yeah, so that answers the question from Jay Taylor. Good job. Next one, Apollo's Thorn. Does Dakota play any MMOs on American servers? And where could we hang out with him?
Well, I would play MMOs. If you got a guild invite for me, sure, man. Currently, I have the stuff, but I haven't played them in over a year. But I was like vet 10 or something on Elder Scrolls Online when it came out. I played to free level 20 in Warcraft once, World of Warcraft. I own Guild Wars 2, but I haven't played it. I don't think ever. That one was a gift from a friend, and because he wanted me to join him, and I must have because it's open, but I don't remember anything about it. But yeah, typically it's more like free stuff. Like if I'm gonna get on there, I do play with a game called Dead by Daylight, fairly infrequently. But if you're on there, I'll throw you on a meat hook. That's cool. That's the whole premise of the game. Beyond that, I play like a couple of Battle.net things like Diablo or I don't know. Very infrequently, Heroes of the Storm, I guess. Otherwise,
you say Hearthstone. I'm like, okay, he seems.
Oh yeah, Hearthstone. Oh yeah, I play Hearthstone. But I played Hearthstone for a while.
It's definitely one of those things. Like, as I write and read more LitRPG, I become, oddly enough, less interested in MMOs because, like, the LitRPG starts to fulfill that gamer
craving,
that gamer craving, and it's better because
without the judgment of your wife,
especially
he's reading, he's improving himself,
exactly. But for me, it's also like every MMO I've ever played, I've sort of been disappointed by it because I always have such high expectations. I always think it's going to be like the most amazing interactive game ever.
It's a sandbox.
And every time I go and I'm like, okay, this is okay. This is not as good as I thought it was going to be. But with LitRPG, I've always, in general, it's always exceeded or at least met my expectations of like the cool game stuff that I always imagined in my brain. And so that, but I found myself just not as interested in playing MMOs. So I'm still interested in like new things that come out and seeing like, oh, that's a cool mechanic, or those are cool graphics. But I know that if I play it, it's going to be like, it's not as good as the story I wrote or I read.
Yeah, exactly. Mario is still pretty good, but
yes, you can't beat Mario or Zelda. Those are very classic games, but again, they're not MMOs, so I think they fulfill a different wheelhouse or a different need.
Exactly. But to your question, if you have an MMO that you play, let me know, and if I can afford / play it or find time for it, I'd love to.
Where can they send those requests to
so pop onto my Facebook group. So the Divine Dungeon on Facebook. So literally, I searched the Divine Dungeon, which was cool because 28,000 people were talking about me the other day, so that was neat.
Remember, folks, to add the divine part and just don't search for just the dungeon.
That's a totally different site. A little too much leather for me in there. But yeah, shoot me a email or not email, instant message, and I have like a 12-minute response rate or something like that. And it's not a chat bot, even though I've looked into no, just kidding. But I usually will get back to you pretty quick. And if it's something that I can get or find time for, I will certainly. I'd love to play. I have access to like Mumble. What is the other one? I have a whole bunch of different like audio options. Like you got like Mumble, you got TeamSpeak, Skype, all these other things. I'd prefer not to use Skype because it eats so much RAM just for everyone. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, pretty much anything. I'd hop on and chat with you for a while if I can. But yeah, let me know.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. Daniel Schiefenhofen. I never say his last name right, I think. And he's an author that I've reviewed books for. He asks, will the next book have a good part inside the dungeon, or is he going to be evolving the story to focus outside of the dungeon like Slime Dungeon Chronicles is doing?
Well, the main character is Cal. The main character is the dungeon. So I do have 2 points of view. You know, like I have Cal and I have Dale. You know, someone said, I'm really worried that this is going to turn into the Divine Dungeon 3 Dale's Quest, you know, and it's not. It's going to be about 50-50 probably. I'm going to try and keep more heavy emphasis on Cal, who is the main character. No, he's not a co-character. Like he's the main character. And this is the third book is going to be, you know, heavily focused on other things such as using the magic system. So the second book was more action-packed, and because of that, you know, we weren't able to put in like, hey, you know, like I learned how to shoot big ass fireballs or something like that. You know, like it was more like, oh my gosh, I need to do everything I can to survive because I'm about to die. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You know, the third book is going to be more heavily focused on magic systems. Definitely, you know, upgrading of the dungeon, but it's also not going to be like, you know, like, all right, I need, you know, 1 mana unit in order to, you know, do this. So I need to save up for X amount of time and do this and this and this. I'm going to keep it away from being dry. It's going to be experimentation. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit crazy, just a little bit. You know, if you read the second book, you know what I'm talking about. So I mean, it should be very fun. It should be, you know, good, but it's not going to be Dale as the main focus. It's just not going to happen. So
okay, yeah, no, that's perfect. I think that's the answer he's looking for. There's always going to be a comparison between the Divine Dungeon series and the Slime Dungeon Chronicles, just because they're both dungeon stories, and there are a lot of the same themes that run through them as far as like balancing out killing adventurers versus enticing them into the dungeon, creating traps, evolving monsters, whether they're, you know, killer rabbits or slime monsters or whatever it is. And so those, and they both seem to be coming out about the same time every year as well. You have a very similar release schedule. Like yours came out first, and then a couple weeks later, Slime Dungeon Chronicles came out. So they're always going to be, I think, related in part in people's minds. So I get his question.
Sure.
Sometimes they're like, oh, he did this. Does that mean you're going to have to do this too? Or, you know?
No. You know, there were similarities in the first book, but I certainly hope that people realize that it was only like surface, like only on the surface were there things that are super similarities. Like, you know, like, yes, they're both dungeons. Yes, they both have a companion. Yes, they both have an alternate main character. But the stories have, I mean, the stories are very, very unlike each other. Very unlike each other. In my opinion, at least. I don't know if you have a different opinion because you're grinning, but
I can't see that right now because I lost that third picture, so they can only see you.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm grinning because in my mind I'm listing like the similarities, and they're different stories. I'm not saying they're the same, right. But it's like saying two different fantasy stories are not similar in some respects. Like all dungeon stories to me have things in common that are just part of the genre.
Right, and they will
can't have different tales or different themes or different like outcomes or different like character choices and things like that, or different you know, magic systems. But they're always, I mean, you're still going to compare like two different types of fantasy, you know, and that's just kind of the way it is in subgenres.
Sure, and I mean, you know, in the second book, I did add in a little a little thing, a nod to the slime dungeon, just for fun. Like there's one part where you know, it's going along and it's like kind of like a slime coalesces because of all the ambient magic in there, and Cal freaks out and he's like, no way, never again. I'm never dealing with the slime dungeon again, or with like slimes again. And then he's like, wait a second, what was that all about? And that will be explained in the third book, or if the crossover between Falcon and my books actually takes off. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something I want to do, but and that's something I was going to focus on a little bit more after the second book came out. Simply because otherwise his would overpower mine 90% of the time, you know, like unless I got like a sneak critical hit in somewhere or something like that. Like, yeah, I mean, I would love to do that crossover. It just I haven't had the time for it yet. With you know, classes, work, wife, book, dog, all this other stuff going on. But pretty quick here, I graduate, so I'm very excited about that. And I still have the full-time job, so. Yeah, actually, my lunch hours are pretty hectic because I had to get to the school, take the class, and go back to work in that, you know, in that time frame. But yeah, after that, you know, I'll have more free time to write, and hopefully I can, you know, like I'd love to be good friends with Jeff, you know, and I'd love to have, yeah, totally, and I'd love to have a crossover of the books just to appease the fans, you know, like. Of his books or of my books that want to see us duke it out or something like that, or hurl insults between, you know, Pixie versus Fairy or something like that, and Wisp versus Fairy, I should say. And shit, does he? Sorry, I'm not trying to swear. Does he use a sprite or a Pixie? I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's a sprite, dungeon sprite. Anyway, yeah, but I mean, it would just be good fun for the two of us, I think. But again, that's what I want it to be. I want it to be, you know, like, yes, he's someone else in the genre, but I don't see him as competition. I see him as bolstering the content, you know, like there's one book out, there's two books out. Awesome. There's more of this type that I can read because I can't, you know, tie down that author and force them to write for me and get out a new book every day.
So have you actually read the latest Slime Dungeon Chronicles book?
I have not yet. I have not yet.
So this is part of what I'm saying similarities. I'm like, if you go read it, because you're going to, I see similarities between his book and yours. Okay. Like the way you decided to explore the world. Like, so I'm like, okay, he eventually has a character who comes out as like an extension of the dungeon, the same way kind of Dell is for your dungeon. Sure. Towards the end of his third book, he also has a character that comes out and kind of lets the dungeon explore the world through that character's eyes. I don't think it's intentional, but it's like, I think as dungeon stories, sometimes you want to do certain things like explore the world, and there are only so many ways you can do it when your main character is a static object.
You might be surprised. Yeah. Wait till book 3, buddy. Okay.
Well, I'm not saying you can't be creative on it. I just think it's okay. That's probably part of what that question is like. Oh, you guys seem to be having similar themes and thoughts about how to like explore your world sometimes. Gotcha. And that's just, like I said, it's the consequence of like a subgenre in that certain recurring themes are gonna occur occasionally.
Sure. All right. So next one then, I guess.
That's it. We're done. That's it. Daniel had the honor of being the very last one. I had when book 3 is coming up, but you already answered that way early in the podcast in the interview, man. So that's kind of it. Was there anything else you want to talk about before we head off?
No, I think I'm pretty solid. But I mean, again, I just wanted to thank everyone that picked up the books. I wanted to say, you know, like, thank you for making this series continue, and you know, so I didn't stop after book 1, because that was actually originally the plan, was only one book, even though it kind of left off with the, you know, with room for it. But I mean, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's made it possible. Thank you to everyone that's purchased the book and read it, and especially those of you who did that, all of that, and left a good review. Amazing. You guys are wonderful. And I hope, you know, to see you. You guys can always reach me on my Facebook page. Yeah, so pretty much just my soapbox there. I'll get off of it. But
you know, it just occurred to me. how we could do that dungeon fight. We could do a Google chat like this, just him, you, and me, and you guys, your dungeons can face off head to head, and like a dungeon roll battle. Like you could have character sheets for each one of you with like your different monsters as like abilities, or like different traps that you set out for each other, like to kill each other's monsters. And you can just make rolls live and like see who wins according to their characteristics. And I'd be like the DM saying, "Okay, you know, Cal emits his cultivation technique and leashes, you know, killer mushrooms, and you know, the other dungeon releases electric slimes. Battle, you know, or whatever."
Well, I mean, with the earth affinity that mushrooms have, I feel like they'd have an advantage in that case. But anyway, of course, we're all going to be rooting for our own characters. So, great, man. Well, thank you again for having me on.
I appreciate it very much for taking the time. I know you have a lot of things to do. You have a lot of writing to do. Apparently, I feel really bad that I don't write as much as you.
No, don't worry about it. I mean,
it is what it is.
You have very quality material, so you write at your own pace, man. I'm looking forward to the next book. So.
Yeah, I'm always looking forward to yours as well. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast and talking to me about, you know, the things that we both love, LitRPG and Divine Dungeons, and a bunch of good story and author ideas, and just, you know, hanging out because, you know, you're a nice guy and I like talking to cool people.
As are you. And you are awesome as well, man. And it's always a pleasure to chat with you. So we'll keep at it. And I mean, you have my phone number, so you know, whenever.
Absolutely. Now, for anybody who wants to contact Dakota Krout, remember he has a Facebook page, The Divine Dungeon. He also has an Amazon author page. We'll have a link in the show notes for his other content to his books and, of course, his Goodreads page. So remember, if you read his books, leave him a review. They're really important for authors because they mix with that Amazon algorithm that tells people who to recommend it to, and you know, so it helps people find those great stories that you love. You help other people find that same story when you leave a review. So remember, dude, that's always an author's helper is a good review, or even just a bad review, just a review in general. So thank you everybody for listening and for watching to the podcast. And Dakota, if you want to say goodbye real quick, we'll end the podcast.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. And hope to see you. Hope to see your names in the review section or on my Facebook page. So talk to you all soon.
Perfect. And for the LitRPG Podcast, I am Ramon Mejia. Remember, until we can hang out again, remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody.